Welcome to the first annual 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft Selection Show. Today, we will be unveiling the order in which all 16 fantasy teams will be drafting their players for the upcoming season. Throughout the selections, I will be tossing around a few statistics that you might find interesting, and also giving a small recap of what each team did the year before, as they've announced. As we embark on our 7th official season, there are a few new teams that have thrown themselves into the race for the CTN Championship. But today is where it all begins on that long journey to fantasy football immortality. So without further ado, to kick things off and find out who's number one, let's toss it to our commissioner.
With the first pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Los Angeles Dons.
As most of you already know, the Los Angeles Dons earned the number 1 overall draft pick by winning the consolation playoffs at the end of last season. The Dons finished the season with the worst record in the league, going a meager 2-11, but somehow pulled out their last 2 victories in the consolation playoffs to be legitimately the best of the worst. The Los Angeles Dons had the 3rd pick in last year's draft and selected Arian Foster. Unfortunately, Foster got shut down midway through the season with a devastating back injury and never came close to living up to our expectations. Here's a little food for thought. In an average of 14,000 fantasy drafts, the team who drafts first overall only has the 3rd highest success rating of bringing home the championship. The team with the highest chance of hoisting the trophy belongs to the team with the number 2 spot. And to find out who that is, let's head back up to the podium.
With the 2nd pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Chi-Town Crushers.
The Chi-Town Crushers, one of the league's most imposing teams last year, finished the season sharing the best record at 11-2. They ripped through their first 7 opponents, with the closest margin of victory being 20 points and the widest margin of victory being 56 points. They basically waltzed into the playoffs as the number 2 seed, but were quickly bounced out in a 44-point upset loss in the first round. Due to some technical difficulties, the Crushers' owner was unable to be present for his team's draft last season, but they made out pretty well, selecting Marshawn Lynch 6th overall. After dominating last year's regular season, the Crushers have to be happy hearing the team possessing the number 2 overall pick has the highest percentage of championship victory. The commissioner has made his way back to the stage, so let's see who will be picking 3rd.
With the 3rd pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Slayerville North Jackets.
One of the newest additions to the City and Team Name Fantasy League, the Slayerville North Jackets are in a prime position to make an immediate impact this season. With so many potential fantasy standouts still on the board so early in the draft, the North Jackets have a plethora of weapons to choose from. No team in the 6 years of this league have won the championship drafting 3rd, but players such as Maurice Jones-Drew, Chris Johnson, and Ray Rice have all fallen to the number 3 pick over the years, leaving their owners very happy with many points from the board. It's time to see who will be on the clock next.
With the 4th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Roydon Cannibals.
Well, I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack for this one. Hey, I don't control which way the ping pong balls bounce, I just read them. The Croydon Cannibals, a team that I know very well, finished the season with a 9-4 record and most importantly a 7-game win streak that tied the Chi-Town Crushers as the longest and most consistent string of victories of all the teams in the league. It wasn't until that damn blizzard of the century came that the Cannibals were to be defeated in the first round of the playoffs. Not taking anything away from the Charlotte Queen Bees, but that 97-91 victory is tainted, and that's all I've got to say about that. Croydon secured the second pick in last year's draft, but had the misfortune of selecting Doug Martin, a man who never made it past week 7. The number 2 pick doesn't guarantee you a chip, but drafting 4 can lead to much more. Now let's take a short drive to see who's selecting at 5.
With the 5th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Austin Ankle Breakers.
The Austin Ankle Breakers are one of the more perplexing teams of last year. They lost their first 6 games of the season, and I swear at times they only had 5 guys on the field, yet they turned it around late and made it to the playoffs where the unthinkable happened, and they defeated the mighty Chi-Town Crushers 151-107, dishing out some of the treatment the Crushers had been giving to other teams all season long. With that inaugural year under their belt, it's possible that Ankle Breakers won't have to wait until the 7th week of the season to start playing some ball this year. Austin had the 8th pick in last year's draft and selected all-around back LaShawn McCoy. The Ankle Breakers even brought home the 3rd place trophy last year, but I'm sure their sights are set on grabbing the big one this time around. The commissioner is ready. Who's next?
With the 6th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the St. Louis Stallions.
The St. Louis Stallions moved down a couple slots from their 4th overall selection just 1 year ago. With that pick, the Stallions were the first to draft a quarterback, Mr. Colin Kaepernick. The Stallions looked like a couple worn-down racehorses last year, finishing almost dead last with a 3-10 record. I even heard a rumor the Stallions were going to be euthanized, but I'm happy to see that they came back to live and fight another day. Hopefully this will be a better year for St. Louis, and the Stallions will contend for some medallions. The number 7 selector has been chosen. Let's see who it is.
With the 7th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Lebanon Pioneers.
One of my favorite teams, the Lebanon Pioneers. A team that had more built-in excuses than victories last season. The Pioneers tied the St. Louis Stallions for the 2nd worst record, finishing 3-10. But a lot of that had to do with Lebanon's insistence to play injured players. Here's a little secret for the owner of the Pioneers. Players don't get points if they're not playing in the game. The Pioneers had the 2nd to last pick in the draft last season. A pick that was randomly selected, Stu, just saying. And they selected fantasy underachiever CJ Spiller. Will the Pioneers discover the promised land this season, or will they continue to settle for mediocrity? The commissioner has the 8th selection.
With the 8th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Charlotte Queen Bees.
The Queen Bees from the Queen City, named for Queen Charlotte Sophia, and like Queen Charlotte, the Queen Bees died a regal death, making it to the second round of the playoffs and being defeated by the eventual champions. Charlotte finished third in the division with an 8-5 record and won the Blizzard Bowl in the opening round of the playoffs. The Queen Bees had the 9th pick in last year's draft and selected Trent Richardson. According to statistics, owners with the 8th overall selection have the second highest success rating of possibly winning the championship. Only time will tell if the Queen will wear the crown. Back to the podium we go.
With the 9th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Minneapolis Blazers.
Another new addition to this year's league, the Minneapolis Blazers will look to make a splash with the 9th overall pick. Back in 2010, the current champions, the Hollywood Scene, won their first of 2 championships selecting from the 9th overall spot. So if you're a believer in history repeating itself, you have to be a bit optimistic at the prospect of making something magical happen in your rookie year. Can the team from the Twin City drop the T and simply be known as Win City by the end of the season? The commissioner is ready to proceed.
With the 10th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Baltimore Ravens.
The Baltimore Ravens were a phenomenal team last season. They scratched and clawed their way to a 7-6 record, got into the playoffs with the 6th seed, and advanced all the way to the championship game before losing to the current champions. Oh, and did I mention they did all this in their rookie season? If that's not impressive, how about the fact that the owner had an unforeseen circumstance that prevented him from being present at his draft, and he was given a roster full of guys he wouldn't have drafted had he been there? With the 7th pick, the Brokers selected one of the 2 first-round quarterbacks taken that year, Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers was productive for the first 9 weeks of the season, but the majority of Baltimore's roster was formed through the waiver wire. Baltimore could have melded in, but they stayed active and stayed aware of the happenings in the league and came within 1 game of being the 2013 City and Team Name champions. Baltimore set the standard and raised the bar for any team in their inaugural season. We're past the midway point. Let's see who's drafting next.
With the 11th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Carolina Kingdom Beats.
The Carolina Kingdom Beats, and even as I say their name, I can picture it in all capital letters, will be entering their first season with the City and Team Name League. But they've already made it clear in the league's group page that they're here for one thing and one thing only, and that's to bring that trophy home to the Tar Heel State. The Kingdom Beats better have all their war anthems ready, because there's 15 other teams out there with the same exact idea. No team has ever won the championship from the 11th draft position, so it would be history making on all accounts if Carolina scores big in their rookie year. The commissioner is ready to make his next announcement.
With the 12th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the San Juan La Princesa.
San Juan La Princesa had a pretty impressive season, finishing 10-3, but getting tossed out of the playoffs no sooner than they got in. They had the number 1 pick overall last season and selected Adrian Peterson, who was coming off of his 2,000-yard season from the year before. San Juan benefited from being in a very weak division last season, with the next closest team having 5 less wins. On top of that, San Juan's 3 losses and playoff defeat all came at the hands of teams with winning records. So in this case, the numbers do indeed lie, and San Juan was nothing more than a product of a weak schedule. They have a lot to prove in 2014, and it all starts with winning the games that matter. Let's head to the stage and see who's picking at lucky number 13.
With the 13th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Palm Beach Elitists.
Hailing from beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, the Elitists will be the first team in this year of expansion to hold a draft pick past the usual round-ending 12th selection. If my heart went out to any team last season, it would have to be Palm Beach. I've never seen a team get a raw deal week in and week out the way Palm Beach did. Their 4-9 record doesn't reflect the lack of effort on the owner's part by any means. The team was formed with hopes of productivity, but the players had other ideas come game day. I don't know if Palm Beach wasn't compensating their players accordingly, but they had more no-shows on Sunday than Lindsay Lohan at mandatory court appearances. And not only did they lose, but they always lost big. The closest point differential of any of their 9 losses was 22 points. Yes, that was the closest. On draft day, Palm Beach had the surprise pick of the day, drafting Le'Veon Bell with the 5th overall selection. Now, Le'Veon wasn't bad at all. I should know because I ended up with him around week 4. But Le'Veon missed the first few weeks of the season with an injury, and since that was public knowledge going into the season, the Bell first-round selection was a highly questionable one. Now that Palm Beach has a year under their belt, and they seem more dedicated than ever, I have a feeling they'll see more than 4 wins in 2014. Now let's see who's coming in at 14.
With the 14th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Ben Salem Wolves.
The Ben Salem Wolves are looking to make the number 14 pick significant in the year of 2014. There has never been a number 14 pick in the City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, so it'll be intriguing to see who will be available when the Wolves are on the clock. Ben Salem is in a division where you have 2 playoff teams and another unproven in the Slayerville North Jackets. So it's not going to be easy to make a name, but they can definitely raise a few eyebrows should they take down the competition in impressive fashion. Let's throw it to the commish and see who's got the next pick.
With the 15th pick in the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Kalamazoo Bombermen.
Well, I have an amazingly depressing announcement for the Kalamazoo Bombermen. Or in the words of WWE's Wade Barrett,
I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Bad news. Bad news.
the second to last selection in the draft has the lowest average success rate. Kalamazoo, your job is to dispel this myth. Apparently, having the second to last pick is the equivalent to playing behind the 8 ball. If you need your possible fate broken down into a number, you have a 2.97% chance of winning the championship this year. A 2.97 chance of winning the championship. If you needed any more ammunition to get you fuel for the season, this should be it. Prove all the naysayers wrong and show the world that the underdogs have a chance. And now I believe we all know who's left. But I'm going to let the commissioner have the honor of blessing us with his presence one more time to make that announcement.
With the 16th pick and the 2014 City and Team Name Fantasy Football Draft, the Hollywood Scene.
Ah yes, the Hollywood Scene, the only two-time champion in the history of this league. One of the longest tenured teams remaining, the Scene had the bright light shining upon them as they strolled down the Walk of Fame to an 11-2 record. Once they advanced to the postseason, nothing stood in their way. They won their first round match by 64 points, their second round match by 45 points, and the championship game by 28 points. But that should have come as no surprise because the Hollywood Scene was putting up huge scores on a consistent basis. The Scene set records in points scored, putting up a combined 1,631 points for the year. They set the record for best single player performance when Peyton Manning went crazy in week 1 and put up 67 points against the Ravens, and also that same week, the Scene posted the highest total weekly points by any team in City and Team Name history, 174. Amazingly enough, the Hollywood Scene had the last pick in the draft last year too, and according to the same researchers who've given us all of our stats for this evening, the team who drafts last has the second worst chance of winning the championship. Well, the Hollywood Scene didn't seem to get that memo. With the last pick in the previous season's draft, the Scene selected Jamal Charles. But let's go a bit deeper. When it was time to make their next selection, they drafted Calvin Johnson. Oh, but wait, we're not done. With their third round selection, they drafted Peyton Manning. Damn, it just makes me wonder what the hell I was doing when he was drafting all the highest performing players in the draft. But as the saying goes, heavy is the head that wears the crown. The Hollywood Scene have a target on their back as big as the Hollywood sign on the Hollywood Hills. Everybody is going to be looking to make an impression against the Scene, and most importantly, prevent them from putting together another big three like they did in 2013. And that, folks, brings a close to tonight's festivities. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. I have a great time with you guys, and I'm truly happy with the group of men and women I've chosen to share this experience with. All I ask is that you continue to contribute. There are still a few teams out there with no logos, and I hope to see that change very soon. And once this season starts, I expect everybody to be present and give it all you've got for every week there's a game to be played. Just a reminder, the draft is going to be Saturday, August 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All my people in different time zones, I'll let y'all do the math. I hope to see everyone there. We're going to have a great time just like we did last year. Congratulations to everyone for receiving the draft selections that you have. And we can now let the timer begin because the draft will be here before you know it. Thank you all. Good night.